Hello and welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the introduction of the Hertz Sportsbook. My name is Evan, you can call me Tiz, and in this video, we'll be breaking down how to help you become the most profitable MMA bettor and DFS player that you can be, whether that be through general DFS strategy, contest type, contest selection, site to site, that being DraftKings versus FanDuel, Vegas lines, the movement in those Vegas lines, and everything in between we'll be touching on in this video. Before we get into that, if you enjoy the content and you want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe down below. It would be greatly appreciated. It goes a long way. It only takes 2 seconds of your time. At the recording of this video, the upload of our introduction skit to the channel has been up for around 4 days now. That seems to be doing pretty well at around 115 views or so, I believe, right now. So I just want to say thank you so much for all the support on that. If you haven't seen it, we'll leave a link in the description down below. You can go check that out. For everyone that's supported, shown positive feedback so far, we greatly appreciate it. We're just getting started. We can't wait to pump out some of the best fight content that we can. So with that being said, let's just get right into this video. A little background on myself and just general DFS strategy. I've been involved in the daily fantasy sports space for a little over 2 years now, mainly through baseball, basketball, and football. And obviously with each sport being different, there is going to be a different approach site to site to constructing a lineup on each given slate. Each sport will have a different allotted salary cap as well as salaries for each player or fighter that you can use to make your lineup under that given salary cap. In DFS, there are a few terms that remain true throughout, and one of those terms is value. Salary cap and value are the name of the game in DFS, and MMA is no different. However, what is different between MMA and the 3 sports I rattled off before is that those 3 sports are team sports and MMA is not. In team sports, each player in a given game is generally going to benefit or suffer from how the other players in the game are performing and who is playing, whether that be on their team or on the other team. For example, when a starter goes down with an injury unexpectedly, or for football in this case, in the week, once the slate's already been posted, typically the player stepping into that starting role for that injured player, more likely than not, is not going to be priced what they should be by the site, and is just going to look like a standout value. Sure, in MMA you might have a fighter pulled out of a scheduled fight, their replacement steps in, they're added into the player pool, and by default look like at least a serviceable value, but that's pretty far and few in between, and somebody stepping into a fight on just a few weeks and sometimes even days notice to prepare isn't typically someone we want to bet our money on unless it's just some absurd value. This is where the Vegas lines become very important, because that is the basis of how these salaries are made. And the Vegas lines, unlike the salary of each given fighter, tend to move during the week. And with that being said, I'd like to get into the difference between a cash game and a tournament. Cash games are all about the value. It serves as a nice little bankroll booster in which we're looking for the biggest misprices and best quote-unquote floor plays, or in other words, the play that's less likely to hurt your lineup. And not as concerned with ownership or draft percentage, however you would like to refer to it as. Not as worried about that as you would be in a tournament, in which we'll get into in a little bit. Correlation is a term used for lineup construction in the major team sports and can be utilized in many different types of strategic ways. Whether it be pairing a quarterback with his number 1 wide receiver in football, playing a star point guard with his center in a high-implied, fast-paced Vegas total game with a player on the other team in basketball, or the heart of a very powerful baseball lineup against the guy making his first start in the big leagues. Correlation is the driving force to upside in daily fantasy sports and is essential to placing first in a tournament. So how does it tie into MMA? Well, to put it lightly, it doesn't. When playing a cash game, you can consider the strategy of stacking a 5-round fight and essentially just locking in 100 points into your lineup so long as the fight gets into the championship rounds. This is primarily a DraftKings approach, as FanDuel is very adamant on just getting as many wins as possible for your lineup. With DraftKings, the scoring is very attentive to not only if the fighter wins or loses, but how they win or lose. the fight, therefore still creating the opportunity for a fighter to still put up a pretty good score and return value for their salary even in a loss. Scoring and salaries are obviously very important site to site, so just know what site you're playing on, and remember that an above average FanDuel play might look like a below average DraftKings play, so just be wary of that. And Rob will have a separate video coming out talking about the differences to know between each site's scoring system. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss that. When making a lineup for any DFS tournament, scoring as many points as possible and first place are still a goal. So when making an MMA tournament lineup, fight stacking goes out the window, and we are looking to go 6 for 6 for both sites. The lineup is 6 fighters, so we're looking at as many wins as possible. 6 for 6 is obviously very hard to do, but that is the goal at the end of the day. And to ensure that we do get first place and that we're not splitting the prize up top with anybody, we need to consider the concept of ownership. Now, we can't know exactly for sure how much of the field is rostering a specific fighter until after the fight, but we can certainly make an inference based on salaries and the Vegas lines. A heavy main event favorite or a heavy favorite to finish a fight are typically going to be the most popular plays and what we call good chalk. Chalk meaning popularity. Every sport has it, whether it's good or bad. It's what's going to make or break any given slate or fight card. And for those who make multiple lineups, if you are under the field to a piece of good chalk, obviously a piece of chalk, a popular play that ends up scoring really well, your chances of winning are just going to become that much harder. This is important because a new player might hear having to differentiate and be unique from the field and get the impression that their entire lineup has to be a bunch of higher risk, high reward dart throw plays that, on the surface just aren't very advisable, good DFS plays. And while a strategy like that can be more applicable to a sport like MMA rather than the other sports that were mentioned before, it's still not the preferred way to go about making a tournament lineup for MMA. There are plenty of simple yet effective ways to do that. That each fight card presents in a different way, and in which case we will get into with each episode and each fight card that we break down. So make sure to be on the lookout for that, of course. So that's all for this video, guys. I hope you learned something about MMA DFS and MMA betting. Like I said, by watching this, like I said, Rob is gonna have a separate video coming out in the week, breaking down the point system site to site between DraftKings and FanDuel, and the differences to know between those. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. Leave a like on this video if you haven't already, and make sure to subscribe as well. And we will see you guys on the first episode.